Welcome to Real and Raw. Your story is your medicine, the podcast with Letizia. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Real and Raw podcast. And I'm so excited because today I have another very special, beautiful woman with me. Her name is Vivian. And yeah, I'm so excited to have you on my podcast. Like ever since I kind of started the podcast and met you, I was like, yeah, I want that woman on my podcast.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, totally. And like you're like, Vivian, like just to get like an image of like, yeah, you're like that beautiful medicine woman, like really just living life, you're just expressing joy and life, just by being yourself. And yeah, and you've really inspired me so many times. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank
Yeah,
you.
like seriously, I just want you to know that, and everyone else as well. So yeah, but I mean, if for anyone who is following Vivian on social media, you feel it yourself. And if you don't follow her yet, yeah, we'll share the Instagram later and everything, so you can feel it for yourself. But anyways, welcome, Vivian. It's so beautiful to have you here. Why don't you just share a little bit about yourself? Who are you? And where are you in the world?
Yeah, okay. I am in North Carolina in the United States. I am a 32-year-old mama of 3 boys. I am an herbalist. I have my own podcast. I am a radical birth keeper and just really an advocate for healing. I am on this beautiful journey of healing and I'm hooked. I'm obsessed with it because what I've learned is that every single one of us carries a lot of trauma, a lot of pain and suffering. And, it feels like the human experience is a lot of learning how to live with those things and heal those parts of ourselves. So I am just like fully immersed in this journey and really enjoying sharing it with the rest of the world, especially from the perspective of a woman and a mother. So yeah.
So beautiful. Oh my God. Yes, I love it. I love it. And I'm also all about all these things. So yeah, that's why also like, I really wanted to have this conversation with you. And what we're actually going to go into today is all about wild pregnancy, wild birth, natural birth, and also wild mothering, because that's also what you do, right? And
Yeah,
I'm so
absolutely.
impressed also just that, like you're 32, already have 3 kids, like wow. And it's just amazing. Yeah. So yeah, like where do you want to get started? Let's say, why don't we talk a little bit about the wild pregnancy? Because yeah, how was it with your own pregnancies? Have you had a wild pregnancy with all 3 children of yours? Or
Yeah, well, my first pregnancy was anything but wild. It was in the system fully, all the ultrasounds, extra ultrasounds, the 3D ultrasounds, all of the testing, all of the things that I am against at this point in my life. And I, at the time, had no idea that free birth was a thing. It felt like the story was that the only way you could opt out of the system was by having a midwife. And I couldn't afford, I was a single mother when I was pregnant with my first son. I was in an abusive relationship and left that relationship 3 months into my pregnancy. Wow. So like alone, trying to do this thing, mother for the first time, pregnant for the first time, very locked into the system. And I guess this is really sad to say, at least they did not coerce me into a C-section, which they tried very hard to do. But I was just so ignorant. I didn't know, we don't know until we know. And so, by the time I went into labor, and went to the hospital. You know, my water had broken, and there's the story of like, your water breaks, it's begun, but really I needed more time. But of course you go to the hospital, they want you in and out. So they gave me Pitocin. And once I got the Pitocin, I could not handle the contractions. So I ended up getting an epidural, which I didn't want. But I mean, I just remember sitting there crying to my sister and kind of just begging for like forgiveness to make that I'm making this decision, because I knew I didn't want that, but I felt like I had no other choice. And of course, you know, went through all of this traumatic experience in the hospital, but was so deeply in love with my new baby, especially having come from, you know, going about this pregnancy as a single woman. It was like just that very empowering, like stepping into motherhood, that rite of passage felt, there was no other choice. And I was in love with this, with where I was. I just was in love with motherhood. So a few years of all that, and then I met my husband, and we just got pregnant like right away when we started hanging out, basically. And I went to 2, maybe 3 doctor appointments during that pregnancy in the very beginning, and just felt so gross going into these doctors' offices and being asked all of these personal questions. And it, you know, just, it felt so invasive. Even just like even just the questions just always feel so invasive, like you're being interrogated, not like, how are you feeling? What is in your heart? What's weighing you down? It's so cold and sterile. And I remember after like the 3rd appointment, I looked over at Brett and I was just like, I don't ever want to go back. And he was like, okay. And I had just like weeks before started listening to the Free Birth Society podcast and was like, oh, I can do this. Like, I didn't even know this was a thing. Like, I can definitely do this. So yeah, there was no going back at that point. And it's just been this like peeling back the layers ever since then. I mean, and I've been doing this previously in my life also with other health stuff, but like realizing, wow, our power has been taken away from us on so many levels. And we have been, you know, marginalized to like desperate beings. And it takes time and in opening our eyes to all the ways in which like we can reclaim our power. And with pregnancy, that was such a beautiful one, because what I noticed is so many women go into pregnancy reading all the books, buying all the things. It's like this process of overthinking, and it's hard to enjoy anything when you're overthinking. You know, it's like when you go on vacation, like you kind of want to be served. You don't want to like to really relax. And that's kind of pregnancy. Is like, it really should be an opportunity for a woman to like be served and kind of step into that like goddess energy, that queen energy. Totally. But what happens is I think most women end up just becoming overthinkers and stressed out. Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Should I touch that? Should I be around this? Is it okay to have this thought? I mean, it goes so deep. And
totally. Yeah. And also I feel like it's like, and then especially like going into all these, you know, these doctor's appointments, it's like, actually, it stresses you more because you're freaking out. You think like something is wrong. And so, like you say, like, and I mean, I haven't experienced pregnancy myself, but I can just like feel into that. It's like so true. Like it should be something so beautiful to be, to enjoy and to really experience and not feel stressed about, right? So
like you want to associate pregnancy with warmth. But what happens is you go into this cold office, they put you on this cold, crinkly, papery table. They're putting this cold, like chemical gel inside of you to touch around. And it's just, so invasive, and just like the coldness is like, oh no, I should be like sitting in the sun in nature. Like
Totally.
that's far more like healing, and that's going to help me understand what's going on much more than just like some stranger shoving his fingers inside of me.
Oh my God, totally. And yeah, like, oh my God, actually just when you were sharing that, I can like oh my God, I can totally feel that in my body. And especially like remembering back the days when I used to go to my gynecologist and like exactly, it's like that coldness and it's just so uncomfortable and you just want to leave because it's not something beautiful. But yeah,
Yeah.
the thing that we believe, that's just how it has to be. Yeah, you need to be uncomfortable. Well,
Yeah. And
just get
that's, and
over
that's,
with
that's,
it.
that's the unlearning process. That's continues always. Like
Yeah,
you, wherever you are in your path, you will still run into
yeah,
moments where you're like, oh, I have to unlearn this thing that I've been, this piece of information I've been like sold, that's been programmed into my mind, that isn't necessarily like how it has to be.
exactly, totally. Yeah, and I feel like that's like the difficult part, to really acknowledge that and see, oh wow, like, and then giving it space to like to really
Mm-hmm.
unlearn that. And yeah. And anyways, like I wanted to ask you actually, how old were you in your first pregnancy, if I may ask?
24, 25.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. And then in the second pregnancy, how old were you there?
I guess 28 or 29,
Mm,
28, 29.
okay, yeah. And then so yeah, if you want to keep sharing, then how did it go? Like once you told your husband, like, no, there's no way
It
I'm
was
going
the
to the
most
doctor.
liberating feeling ever. It was so amazing to just to make a decision like that, and to fall. It was like a free fall into the warmth of trust,
Wow.
and it was like also really empowering to realize, okay, now this is all in my hands.
Mm,
Now I'm putting the responsibility on myself. So I really need to step into my intuition, into, my health, which was something I was already very focused on at the time anyways. And it was very liberating. And I remember uh, people would, you know, it's a hard thing for people to grasp, and I remember accusations of, well, what if something went wrong? And,
mm,
and I always found it really interesting. I'm like, who has more interest in a baby's health than their mother? Like, if something
totally.
was truly wrong, I would know it, I would feel it, and I'd seek out help. Of
Mhm,
course, no one
mhm.
like, this isn't a suicide mission. Like, but the fear is, it's part of the human collective like culture at this
Yes,
point. Like, just be fearful of what can come, because we're so detached from, death is the reality, and
it
suffering
is.
and pain is reality. We don't need to hide away from it. Actually,
Mhm.
what we must do is like face it. And and it's the same thing with labor, right? So going into labor knowing, okay, this is going to be challenging for my body. I don't even want to say painful. This is going to be challenging for my
Mhm,
body,
mhm.
but at least I have like total freedom, and I don't have any judgment, like energy. And that's something that's like, energy is everything, right? I don't have
Right.
the energy
Mm,
of anyone with like any kind of agenda around
right.
me. And that
Exactly.
is, wow. It's like, that's just such a different way to
Mm,
experience something as incredible as birth, right? And this
mm,
beautiful rite of passage,
mhm.
without where you can really create the environment that you want. That's really beautiful. So yeah, that birth was really beautiful. It was
Wow.
I was living in California at the time, and just like riding the waves of it, and just trusting. And yeah, it
Mm,
was gorgeous. Now, I did have a really um we had a really sad experience after Soul was born. That's my second baby. He was my first free birth.
mhm.
Um so Steve, my first son, did have, and this is like the layers of brainwashing, right? So Steve had jaundice, and they put him under the Billy lights. All you're in the hospital, so you kind of have to go with what they
Right.
say. So when Soul was born, I was still in the like ignorant state of like, jaundice is scary. I like don't know what to do. And so Soul ended up, I started seeing the signs of jaundice, and
Right.
we went through this whole process and ended up in the hospital for 10 days with Soul Ray. And it was devastating. They were terrible to us. That's how that system works. And so, I have a heavy heart for like having this beautiful birth only to end up in the place I was trying to avoid.
Right.
Yeah. And so with my last baby, Kai, it was, just 100% wild on all levels. Still to this day, he has not been to a doctor or been touched by a stranger. And what's interesting is he is hands down my most alive child in that he's like so developed and so and not to, like, my other boys are really smart, but it's really interesting to see, like, even my mom's like, I observe like a difference, and I think it has to do with how he came into the world. Yeah,
that's amazing. That's so beautiful. And how old is he now?
He's like 1.5, a little over 1.5.
Oh, wow. That's just amazing. And I love that you said, like, that he has never been to any doctor, like no stranger has ever touched him. So I'm pretty sure that has so much to do with that he is so vibrant and so alive. That's so amazing. Yeah. And so I guess for you that was like very clear, no? Like when you were pregnant again, like, okay, like definitely like no doctor.
Yeah. And luckily I had my experience behind me. So it was pretty like, even those who didn't agree, were just like, you're going to do what you're going to do. Obviously, you've been through this. And he was actually born in my childhood bedroom, because I was living at my mom's house at the time. So the room I grew up in was the room he was born in, which is so sweet.
That's so beautiful.
And it was really beautiful having support and really being left alone as well. That was such a beautiful experience. And I really love when just actions speak for themselves. So it's really nice to earn that, like I said, everyone kind of backing off and trusting me, because I'm like, look, this perfectly healthy baby, you guys had your doubts. And it's really beautiful to have that story to bring to the table whenever these kinds of conversations come up.
Yeah, exactly. And isn't it kind of sad, like, that we need to kind of like, quote unquote, prove that so people actually believe it?
Of course.
But like, that's the thing, that's the level of brainwashing, that we believe that exactly, like, we will have to go to a hospital to give birth. And what I loved actually the most, what you said before, that really like sat with me, was like no one has like more like wants a baby to be well and healthy than the mother. Like, the mother is the only person who like really would do anything to keep the baby safe and healthy. And it's so true. And like, why do we question that? Like, why don't we trust that, right?
Well, and that's like you peeling the layers back. Oh, this is for generations now.
Yes.
We have been stripped of our, like, what, our capabilities in that, culture is telling us. And when everyone's telling you something, eventually you kind of cave often.
Exactly.
So, everyone's telling us, oh, you don't want to have pain. Oh, you don't. It's just, it's been layers of that. So, going back to just like intuition of like, of course I'm the mother, I know. And you know what, labor, I like, just speaking on like wild pregnancy, wild birth, it is very intuitive. It is so intuitive. I was speaking with a woman recently, and she does like breath work, and she was like, "Oh, you must know all about breath work. You've had 3 babies." And I was like, "No." And she was like, "But don't you have to, and you work with women, don't you focus on breath work?" And I was like, "No, because your breath, it's very intuitive. My job
Exactly.
is not to tell a woman how to breathe. It's to help a woman realize she don't overthink anything. And that is literally wild birth, is don't think about it, just let it all be. Like when you're ready to scream and roar and move your body in these insane ways, that is what you have to do,
Right.
fearlessly, shamelessly, and that is how you're going to do this in a healthy, beautiful way. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Exactly. Yes, totally. And yeah, it is exactly. It's like that conditioning for lifetimes, for generations, that it's so deep within. I mean, just yeah, we're just so afraid of like showing ourselves in that raw selves, like we just think like we have to be like always, like socially acceptable, and it's like,
Yep.
oh my god, no, let's just break free from that and like really just
Yeah.
get out of there and like be raw and real. And
Because nothing feels better. Nothing is more
exactly.
liberating than to be
Ugh,
able to be honest in the full complexity of what you are and all of your,
exactly.
all the dimensions of it. Like this idea of like perfection, it to me is like so boring anyway. I'm like just so over, like I don't want to like I'll never do any like surgery. I don't wear makeup because I'm like, I don't want to look perfect. I want to look like my imperfect self. Like why are we
Exactly.
convincing each other that that's not beautiful? That's more interesting to me than everyone looking the same from the same surgeries and the same makeup style and the same, you know what I mean? It's just
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I mean, and that's like the delayering process, right? And that's like on a real, like physical level. Just first of all, like removing all that makeup. That's like the first
Hmm.
mask. And then from there, like
Right?
moving all of the other masks. And yeah, it's so
Yeah.
true. Oh my God. Because, I used to wear makeup as well. Like, I used to not go out of the house without mascara. I
Hmm.
felt like naked and like, oh my God,
Hmm.
like I felt sick. And then I was just like, a few years ago, I was like, no, I don't need that. Like,
Hmm.
why? And
Exactly.
exactly. And that's just like one layer of like, no,
It's
this
usually
is
it's
who
like
I am.
it's almost like the first layer because it's the
Exactly.
superficial layer, right? It's
Exactly.
like,
Yes.
well, if you can't be comfortable in your body without all the stuff, then you're starting on the very first layer of like self-love and growth and
Exactly.
healing because wow, we've been brainwashed into thinking our pure natural like raw naked self is not enough. What?
Exactly.
Like,
It's crazy. Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes. And it's totally. And also, like, that honestly has been like a topic that I've been diving into like lately, especially. It seems like it's coming up again. Like, exactly that feeling of not being enough. I'm not enough. Like, no,
Hmm.
like, where did that come in? And it's the
Hmm.
crazy thing is that I can really feel that it's not just mine. It's like it's so ancestral and it's so
Hmm.
deep and it's just so sad. It's like, no, let's
Yeah.
bring back that self-love and that self-worth. Like, we are more than enough. We're just simply
Of
by
course.
existing, we are so enough. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cultural conditioning.
Yes.
We've been
Yes.
culturally conditioned to, especially women, also
Mhm.
men, of course, but
Yes.
especially
Yes.
women, to compare, to be jealous, to be
Exactly.
envious,
Mm.
to be catty with each other. I talk about
Exactly.
this kind of stuff a lot on my podcast because it's just
Mhm.
like, wow, like sisters, do
Yes.
we see what's happening here? Like what we really do deep down, love each other, support each other, are rooting for each other. I believe in our hearts, right? We really are. But there's that layer of brainwashing
Mm.
that's been telling us like, no, you should be competing with her. You should be
Exactly.
jealous of her. Like,
Mhm.
yeah.
Exactly. Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is so sad. It's like that this very deep, deep wounds that lie that is so embedded within our psyche,
Yeah.
which actually stems from like this lack, like this feeling again of not being enough. So
Yes,
we're just
exactly. And that's what
projecting it
leads to
out.
that feeling of not
Hmm.
being enough. Because it's like you see someone else and they've got, you know, whatever you don't have, and that's not
Exactly.
enough. And yeah, oh, it goes deep.
Mm.
It goes
It
deep.
it goes so deep. Oh my God, yeah. Actually, another thing that I wanted to talk about the pregnancy, also the birth, we just kind of
Mhm.
like went off, but which I love. I mean, I love this topic of the sister wound and all of that. It's so,
Yeah.
so important to talk about. But like sharing about your birth, like what you were saying, it's like really just about that intuition. And, what I truly believe, and I mean, no, we all have that again, like we've been so stripped from that, and like there's so many layers that we also confuse intuition sometimes with actually conditioning, right? But
Hmm.
I believe that again, like in birth, like because there's that really deep profound knowing that comes back, and I also believe that there are actually every single woman, like on a deeper level, every single woman knows exactly that something is wrong. Every single
Of
woman. It's
course.
just like a lot of them, they don't want to like see it, right? For what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. Well, we're kind of, when you're like told how to do something and how not to do something, it's confusing, it's
Yes.
chaotic, and
Yes.
suddenly you don't want to do it, or you don't want to be responsible for it because you're
Mm.
like, but there's so much information coming at me. So the idea of wild pregnancy and then wild birth and then raising wild children
Mhm. Mhm.
is to really trust, like, you do know, and let go of the confusion, and just, women, we are observers, we recognize patterns, we're really so capable of transforming the world around us. We are the witches, like we truly can transform the world around us, but it requires us to trust ourselves. Like that is what it is you have to
Exactly.
really trust yourself to listen when your body is telling you. When I was in labor with Kai, I would have birthed him much sooner, if like hours sooner. But at one point, I just was like, I need to lay down and I need to rest. And my body was like, okay, cool, you can do that. You're okay. Like there's no pressure. And I just knew, like, okay, so I'm going to lay here for, an hour or whatever. And then I'll let myself get into the active labor. And it's like, I just can't imagine someone being there and asking them permission, asking them, is it okay if I just rest for a little bit? Like, how would anyone else know that? Like, I know
Exactly.
that.
Exactly, exactly. And oh my God, yeah. That's just so that's beautiful that you gave yourself that space. Exactly. Not and exactly like if you would be in a hospital, you have to ask permission. It's like, no, like exactly. Like no one knows what's best for you
Yeah.
than yourself. And
Yeah.
wow, it's crazy. It's crazy. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the same thing goes with parenting. It's so
Mm-hmm.
interesting because you know, now in this day and age with so much information, which is great, it's great to have all this information. But I think a lot of people go into parenting overthinking it. And
Mm-hmm.
once again, if we can't trust ourselves, then if we're like not trusting ourselves in our parenting, we're going to project that onto our children. So we're not going to trust our children. Our children are not going to trust themselves. So such a huge thing for me has been like, helicopter parenting is such a thing we see these days, and letting go and allowing your children to make the mistakes, to fall, to learn the lessons the
Exactly.
hard way has been just like such a beautiful thing to witness. Because what I'm doing, and I see it now that I have a 7-year-old who's at an age where it's like you see the fruits of your labor. And this is so interesting. I was talking to my sister about this recently, because her children are the same age as my two youngest. But since I have Steve as the eldest, it's really beautiful to show him off to the world because he is so outgoing. He talks to adults with total confidence. And how are you today? Did you enjoy your trip to blah, blah, blah? Like things that you just don't see from a child. He's incredibly smart, incredibly intuitive, creative, all of these, qualities that I want from my children. He's interesting. I want interesting, brave children. And he is that. And I'm like,
Wow.
That is like, now I can like see, if you give your children the opportunity to like figure things out, then they're not terrified of the world around them, and they start trusting themselves. And that's like such a cool thing to witness.
Oh, wow. I just get goosebumps. That is so beautiful. Seriously, because, oh my God, like I wish that for every child in the world. Like that's what they deserve, right? And that's what we need. And that's why I just bow to every woman, every mother who really does that, like giving them that space and like really discovering who they are and not brainwashing them into believing they're not enough, they have to just be good in this and that. Like no, like giving them the space to explore for themselves, like what they love, what they don't like, and where their strengths are and where maybe their weaknesses are, and celebrating the weaknesses just as much as the strength, and not telling them that it's bad. It's yeah, that is so beautiful.
It's you can see the children that have been instilled with fear. And that's quite common at this point, and I have a lot of compassion for Steve, who's 7, but even kids his age, often he finds it hard to connect because you see them just, a lot of children just kind of paralyzed at like someone with this confidence, this outgoing, coming up to him, talking. And that can be, I mean, I see it with adults. I'll see a kid walk up to an adult confidently, hey, how are you doing today? And the adult kind of paralyzes, and like, I'm like, why? What's the problem here? Like, just kind of like, what's wrong? Like, oh my God. But this is, it's interesting. And I mean, I've had my fair share of like parenting mistakes. Oh my goodness. But it overall, like, it's hard, and it's really hard to deal with the judgment and the criticism, because for a lot of people, they see you as being irresponsible.
Exactly.
And negligent, where, for me, it's, well, if my kid is, running into the wall, he's going to get really hurt, and I'm going to let him sit there and do that until he gets hurt. And that's how he's going to learn not to treat his body like that. Like, that's a really bad example, but, allowing your kid to climb that tree, like, okay, climb the tree. And then, they develop, that's important to me, is I want my kids to know their body. Like, don't be scared of your body. Know that you can do a lot with, learn to trust yourself. I guess that's like teaching our children to trust themselves in the same way that we have to unlearn the outsourcing of it and relearn how to trust ourselves,
Exactly, totally. And like they get to learn their own boundaries, like exactly, like it's so amazing. And I guess like what is probably the more difficult part is like, as a parent who maybe, well, I don't know how you grew up, but like if we are maybe already more conditioned, like to really give them that space, right? To not try and interact with that, and like, like decondition ourselves first, and then
that's the challenge. And nothing will bring out the shadow than having children. Like nothing will do it the way children do, because you are brought back to all your own childhood pain and suffering. And I made with Steve, I just did a podcast episode on this because Steve for a long time was a very angry child. And I can look back and see how my unhealed wounds contributed to that. So as I've healed my wounds and, just found the tools to deal with, me and love myself and trust myself and all these things, the shift in my son has been unbelievable.
Wow.
Unbelievable. I mean, ask anyone that knew him then, knows him now, and they're like a totally different person. So yeah, doing the work on ourselves, like you can't change other people, but you can change yourself and watch everyone around you affected by it.
Exactly.
And especially as mothers, if we do this, wow, we can really change the world if every mother just started doing that work on themselves.
Exactly. Totally. I totally agree. And yeah, it's so crazy. They are really our biggest masters and like mirrors. And again, like I don't have children on my own, but I see it on my goddaughter, my sister's children, like especially my goddaughter, the older one. Oh my God, like she sometimes triggers the shit out of me.
Yeah.
And I can see that, and it's so beautiful to see because like she's really just mirroring myself. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so crazy. At first, when I didn't realize, I just got mad and I was like, no, wait a minute. Like she's just being you. And it's just so crazy to actually see that and acknowledge that, like, oh wow. Yeah, it's your stuff.
And you can heal your inner child when you react differently than how you've been conditioned to react. So when you show up with love and compassion, you're not only doing that for your child, but you're doing that for yourself. And then you're doing like the layers, like the deep rooted healing. And it's so beautiful. So it's nice when you start I think for a lot of people, it's just being able to recognize in the moment when the trigger happens, right? And being able to say, like, my whole thing is when I see it, I go, okay. I like show up with curiosity. What is this? Like, why am I feeling this way? Oh, maybe because, when I did this, my mom reacted like this. How can I show up differently?
Yes.
For my child and for myself that wanted a different kind of support. And as I do that, wow, it's unbelievable. It's still happening to this day. Just this morning, there was, I saw Steve like getting to this point of anger about something. And I showed up with humor. I just thought to myself, he just needs to be reminded that some of these things are like so lighthearted. And immediately it was so sweet because I was like, oh, I like reacted in a different way. And what normally would have set him off immediately, just like, he just looks over and grabs me and hugs me. He's like, I love you, Mom. And just like smiles. And I'm just like, it's so cool.
Wow.
Like then all of a sudden it starts getting fun. Cause then you're like, wow, I can like change these things that I thought I was a victim to.
Exactly.
I can change this and I can like create a better world just within my family. And if we can do that, if everyone just does that, like the whole world gets better, right?
Exactly. Totally. And that's the beautiful thing. Cause I always say like, we always try to like change everything in the world. Like, oh, we need to save the world, change the world. Like, no, we're not going to get anything done by thinking like that. The only thing we can do is change ourselves, working on ourselves. And then it's so beautiful, like, because you have it right there, right? With your own children, you see the effects right away. And it's like, wow, that's why we do the work, right? That's why we do it. And it's so beautiful, like how we can transform generations of traumas and wounding, like by really doing that work. And I mean, I'm not saying we need to be perfect. Like, of course, like we get triggered. It's all normal, but at least we see it and we're like, okay, let's do it differently maybe next time, right?
Yeah. And forgiving ourselves and showing up for ourselves with like love. And one thing I'm always talking about, especially, I mean, everywhere on all levels, my podcast, on Instagram, whatever, is like women in particular, everybody, but women in particular, mothers in particular, taking time to care for themselves, because it's just so often we're like carrying the weight of an entire family on our shoulders. And we as humans really do need to reconnect with ourselves, with love, because no one else is going to show you love like you can show yourself. Everyone's on their own journey. Children are inherently very selfish and like trying to take, you know, and all the adults around you have their own things going on. You're like, you have to invest in your own wellness, in your own love on yourself. And then it becomes much easier to give that love to others, especially to your children and who, you know, your family around you.
Yeah, that's such beautiful advice. It's so true. And you know what I sometimes like, what I'm so amazed is like, I mean, I see it also with my sister. She has also 3 children. And like, I'm just like so amazed. Like, and also when I see you, like, I mean, of course, we have never met personally, but just like, you know, like seeing you like that, the way you radiate that, you know, that joy and love. And it's just so amazing to see, like, how do you do that? Like, you have 3 children and then you have so many other things. And I'm just so impressed by mothers. Like, seriously, like, I really believe that mothers have superpowers.
They
You know,
do. They really
they
do. I mean,
do.
but the real truth is that we all do.
Yeah.
We all really do. It's just
Mhm.
mothers like have taken on that rite of passage. You
Yes.
know,
Yes.
you die and you're reborn as a
Yeah.
mother.
Mm.
And, you know, so but we all really do. It's like it's in you. You know what I mean?
So true. Yeah. That's so true. But still, I mean, I'm like, sometimes like I feel like a day doesn't have enough hours. I don't get anything done. And then I see my sister and like, how does she even do it? Like, she does all of that plus much more. And on top of that, she takes care of 3 children. I'm like, how? Like, I really don't know.
Well, there's
I
no
don't know.
not, right? Like you just like you've taken on this responsibility. There's no
Yeah,
not. You're not gonna not
exactly.
feed
You
your
just
kids. You're
have
not,
to do
and their little faces when they just, you know, they love you. They just love you. And to have that kind of you know, that's a little being. That's like a growing little being to look at you as their source of security and safety and love and comfort and understanding and acceptance. And that's all. Oh my goodness. I just look at my children and I see their little eyes and I see without words them communicating to me like, am I safe? Am I loved? Am I complete as me? And all I need to do is sit there and like, yes, my dear, of course you are perfect just the way you are.
Yeah.
Like, and so of course, like those moments, that energy that can only be felt when you have your children looking at you like that, it's like, oh, that's all the motivation in the world to keep showing up every single day on all of these levels to make sure they're healthy, they're happy, they're fulfilled, they're nourished, you know? So yeah, I think any woman, once you arrive there, it's like, duh, you know, it's just,
Oh,
it's
wow.
beautiful.
It's so beautiful. Yeah. I just felt that warm feeling around my heart. It's so beautiful. And exactly, it's basically like what, giving them exactly what we didn't receive, right? And so they don't have to go through that. I mean, of course, they're gonna have their own traumas and wounds.
Of
Like, we
course.
cannot, like,
Yeah.
it's impossible to like
Of
save them from all of
course.
that. But at least not these core wounds, you know. So if we
Yeah.
can be the ones who break with these patterns, like, and give them like a better foundation, like, oh my God, that's just so beautiful. And and for me, that's also kind of like the work, like that's why we're here. Like, there's always like, and I feel like especially right now, like there's so many people really consciously doing that work. And you know, they're obviously always trying to keep on re-traumatizing us and everything, but it's like, no, we will not stop. Like, we will keep doing that. And yeah, like, because it paves the path for the next generations. And
Yeah.
like, imagine, I just think sometimes, like, imagine if we can give them that, how beautiful that next generation can be.
I
right?
know. I think it's happening. I have a lot of hope. I think
Yeah.
so many people, our generation especially, we're seeing our elders
Hmm.
as the product of that conditioning, and we're seeing, okay, so many of our elders are sick, they're unhappy, they're not living life with any joy. What can I do differently? And for myself, and then for my children, I want my children to enjoy life. It doesn't have to be this like constant sickness and constant fear.
Yeah.
um yeah, and that's like, I feel like there's a lot of hope. It really feels energetically, even it
Yeah.
feels like people are really waking up to it,
Yes.
and calling out the nonsense, and
Yes.
seeing like, wow, we're really capable of a lot more than we've been led to
Mm.
believe,
Totally, totally. Yes, exactly. I totally believe so too. There is a huge awakening happening.
It is,
It's
it really
inevitable.
is.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it always has to get darker and worse before, like, we can actually
Of course, yeah.
wake up, right? And I mean, just with our own lives, right? And of course, like, and I feel like really like they're like trying their last things to like
Hmm.
keeping people like
And
in
it's
this
not
in
even
this
working.
madness. No, it's not
It's not
exactly.
working.
And I believe the people who are really like trying to hold on to, those are the ones that are gonna, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna be easy, because every time we try to hold on to something that doesn't work, that is falling, like, we just suffer. We suffer.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
how can we free ourselves from that? Is by
Yeah.
just letting go. And
Yeah, it's these tools that, it's that self mastery. It's tools that help us realize, to take it back to like, we are the witches. We can shift the world around us
yes,
simply by
exactly.
shifting ourselves. And that's there's so much power and magic in that. It is very potent, real
Yes,
magic.
yes,
But it's just
exactly.
a matter of like, you really have to become vulnerable with yourself and forgive yourself and
Yes,
show yourself
yes,
love and develop that trust with yourself. I mean, it takes a lot, but man, it's in everybody. It's
it
just a
is.
willingness, there has to be the willingness.
Exactly, exactly, totally. Although I do believe, I mean, yes, it's in everyone, but I do believe that there are just souls who don't have that calling in this lifetime, which they're also playing their role
Right.
in this life. No,
Yeah, of
that's
course.
that's obviously needed as well. But I feel like right now it's like whoever had that calling, like it's like, and especially like it's becoming so more evident. It's like, okay, like there's so much more, and it's just that you cannot hold back, right? There's like,
Hmm.
you get to a point where you're like, you cannot hold back any longer, and it just needs to come out, like, because if
Yeah.
you keep on holding on to that old, like, yeah, you just keep on suffering, and bad things happen, you get sick or whatever, right? Or like life just
Hmm.
boom slaps you in the face. And yeah, so yeah, it's powerful. It is super powerful. And it's also, and that's also kind of the reason why I do this podcast, is to
Hmm.
share these stories. And so women and or who else, like not just women, like maybe also men who are listening to this, like
Hmm.
they also know that they're not alone.
Yeah,
Because
that's,
I feel like
I share the stories that I do on my podcast
Mhm.
because I mean, every time I do, I have so many women that reach out to me and are like, oh my goodness, I was crying while I listened to this. This was so relatable. And it's
Wow.
like,
Yeah.
when you can be more vulnerable and I'm at this point where not everyone resonates with this, but for me, part of my healing is really saying it all. And
Yeah.
I always tell women that I work with, or that I just in conversation, I'm always, anyone who's ever like, this might be too much information. I'm like, there is no such thing as too much information with me. I will never judge you. If
Mm,
you only knew what I have in my past, you would
right.
be like, oh, okay, I'm amongst friends, someone who won't
Mm,
judge, because
mm,
I've been through it all. I've like been the shitty end of a lot of things. So
right.
sharing that on the podcast is very, very healing for me, because we are all human, and it's nice
Exactly.
to like have that relatability to people of like, yeah, I portray the beautiful things, but trust me, I went through like sludge to get here. Like,
Right. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. And that's what I so appreciate about you, because that really comes through, that realness, like there's like, this is me, this is who I am. And yeah, and I feel like that's exactly the inspiring thing. Like literally, like when I, again, like we have never met in person, but from the first time I saw you, I was like, oh my God, I want to get to know her. Like, yeah, like just
Ooh,
a
I felt the
just
same. It was
your
very mutual. I felt the same way about you,
oh.
girl.
So beautiful. Yeah, like just your smile. I was like, oh my God, this woman, she's special. And also, yeah, again, like when you share on social media, because it's so real, and it's just you in your life, and there's that's just who you are, and I love that
Yeah.
so much, and I feel like that's what we need. Like, I'm so tired of all of this fakeness and this, like, perfection, like you said before. Like, oh no, this is like
It's
just,
boring. It's so
exactly, and it
boring.
honestly just makes me want to
Yeah. Like,
Dude.
all right. Like seeing everyone. Yeah. It's like, it's just, yeah, no character. Like, I want character. I want character in things. I want scars and good
Yeah,
stories, and like, whoa, you came back from that.
yeah,
You are a badass. And that's literally like every woman. Like, every woman has a story of like, if
exactly.
you're alive now and you're like able to tell your story, then you're a badass.
Exactly, totally. And that's why, that's why also the name of my podcast, Your Story is Your
Uh-huh.
Medicine, because it is. It's
It
like what
is.
we have lived is what actually can help others heal as well. I mean, not that we're healing anyone, but like sharing that,
That's
you
medicine.
know?
That's such medicine.
It
It's so
is.
powerful to feel um that connection, and that
Yeah,
like shared, we've got each other, like we're holding each
exactly.
other. Oh,
Exactly.
that's so important. I really am. Oh,
Yeah, so beautiful. Such medicine. Oh my God, I just feel so full right now.
me
Seriously,
too.
like this is it. This is it. And like what we were actually touching on before, like about the sister wound also. Like this is it. Like we don't need to compete with each other. Like we
No.
are here to uplift with each other. Like we can shine and let others shine as well. Like, and because we're
Yep.
all so unique, we all have our own unique light that wants to be shared. And so yeah,
And I
it's
say
just
that as a
cool.
woman who spent most of my life judging other women, comparing myself to other women, being jealous of other women.
Oh my
That
God.
was most of my life. It's really only recently that I started realizing and truly feeling in my heart, wait, no, I'm like
Mm.
totally fucking amazing. And so are other women. Like, why am I like, I'm just like my own thing, but like, I want to see everyone succeed in your own, like,
Mhm.
whatever way. And it's cool to like, I think it's easy to say that, but I like did the work to finally feel this. And that's
Yes. Yes.
unbelievable, because I truly now, I don't care who you are, I see you as like my sister, as my
Mhm.
peer, as my as someone that you're right next to me. I'm not above you, and I don't really see
Exactly.
anyone above me. I see like we're all here like doing our best with what we have and what
Yes.
we know, and like
Hmm.
that's like honorable. That's what I'm here for.
Totally. Oh my God, yes, I so resonate, because same, like of course, I've been there myself, and it's like
Mhm.
all this work on myself, like seeing like, oh wow, like actually finally seeing myself, like knowing my own worth. And of course, I can see it then in others too. And that's
Yeah.
it. Like, and then the magic that happens when we get together and really everyone sharing their own magic, it's like boom, like we
Yeah.
are powerful beyond measure. And so yeah, it's important that we remember. Yeah,
Mhm.
totally.
Yeah. And uplifting each other, nothing feels better than like your sister, like your friend being rooting for you,
Exactly.
and not like, you can feel when somebody's like, oh, you're not, you whatever darkness you have that you can't be supporting me, like, well, that sucks. But like at this point, I don't take it personal anymore. Everyone's got their own stuff. But when I do have the women in my life that are like, hell yeah, Vivian, like, that's so powerful. And that, like, I want to give that to other women. Like this.
Oh my God, we just had some technical issues. Like I was kind of like thrown out of the call. So yeah. Anyways, we're back. Yeah, so we're gonna come anyways now to the end of the hour. I just wanted to ask you, Vivian. Well, first of all, thank you so much for being here. It has been so amazing, that conversation we had. Super inspiring and healing.
Oh, thank you for having me. This was so lovely. I loved it.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to ask, like, do you have any last things you want to share about white pregnancy, white mothering, white birth, or just anything else that you feel like sharing?
Wow. I guess really the same thing that I've been saying, which is, if we learn to love ourselves truly and trust ourselves, and, our soul, our spirit has a path for us and is communicating with us. And if we can learn to stay true to ourselves and listen to our bodies, listen to just everything that is communicating with us, to how to step into our power and enjoy life. It's within us, and it's just a matter of like developing that relationship with yourself. So yeah, just love on yourself, find way. And like, that's not just like the sweet things. It's also like forgiving yourself, and being honest is such a huge part of it. Being honest with yourself. We all tell ourselves stories all the time. So really learning how to be honest and forgive and trust ourselves is like all the steps into what we need to have these like beautiful wild pregnancy, wild birth, wild parenting, and do it like confidently and, showing up in like the highest integrity. Is just do the work on yourself, show up for yourself consistently, always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Yeah. Just letting that sink in. Oh, thank you. And you know what I just thought? It's actually just perfect. Like, like how it kind of got, like we had those difficulties. It's like, it just shows like, we don't need to be perfect, right? Like,
nope,
this is
exactly
real life.
Yeah. Seriously.
Like talking about that.
Yeah, exactly. Like the perfectionist persona could easily be really frustrated, but I've just arrived at this point in my life where I'm like, it's all good. Like, that's okay. Like, that's just okay.
Exactly.
I don't like feel anything in my body from it, but I'm just like, okay.
Yeah. I'll just wait. Let's see.
Yeah, totally.
Oh man. Thank you so much, Vivian. Really, it was so amazing to talk to you. And I knew it would be like an amazing conversation. So looking forward to that. And yeah, we finally did it. Yeah, maybe in the future we can have another episode on other topics, because I feel like we could go on and on and on. And
totally.
Yeah, I really also feel like we're like really like, yeah, kind of on the similar path, like having, similar values and, about the work and everything. And so yeah, another thing I wanted to share, because like, anyone who's not following Vivian yet, or maybe on social media, if you want to share your Instagram, and I'm also going to put it then on the description, so to make sure everyone can.
Yeah, so everything I do is under this umbrella of Mamapachamama. So I have an apothecary selling like herbal skincare, herbal remedies. I have a podcast called the Mamapachamama Podcast. And I offer different services and stuff. My Instagram is at Mamapachamama. And it's basically all just like health, wellness, healing, like everything that I absolutely love that has like helped me fall in love with life. That is like the whole brand of it. So, and yeah, just my own like personal take on life. So yeah.
So beautiful. I love it. And especially also just Mamapachamama. Oh my God. I just love it. Yeah. And by the way, you inspired me to get a dry brush. I finally bought one.
Nice. It'll change your life. It's so nice. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Oh my God. I just wish we would live nearby and so we could hang out and like, yeah, totally. Anyway,
let's just chat
yeah.
more. Let's like catch up with each other more often. I
Yeah.
love this. This felt really good. Like I'd like to do this more often.
Totally. Let's do that. Definitely. Yeah. Oh my God. Again, thank you so much, Vivian.
Of course, Letizia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. And also thank you everyone for listening. And yeah, go and check out Mamapachamama, all her amazing stuff. And again, thank you for listening, and talk to you in another episode. Bye.
All right.